Hello, and welcome to this second keynote of the conference. I'm Martin Spring, conference chair, and I'm happy to say I'm also chairing today's keynote by our speaker, Joanna Swash. I must confess that there's a little bit of self-interest in this particular choice of keynote speaker, because I'm especially interested in the boundaries of the firm and outsourcing and business-to-business services. And so Joanna's business is fascinating in that respect. Joanna's company is called Moneypenny, and it provides outsourced call answering, live chat, digital switchboard services, and things like that to thousands of clients, small companies, large companies, and internationally. Joanna also recently was awarded the CEO of the Year award by the magazine Management Today, which I think I've been reading for on and off for 30 years at least. So we're lucky to have Joanna with us today. Joanna's going to talk for about half an hour or so, maybe a bit more, and then we'll have some questions and answers. And those of you that have been to sessions before know that there's a Q&A button area on the right of the screen, so please pose questions there as we go along. That's all from me. I'm going to hand over now to Joanna.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much for the invitation to speak, Martin. It's an absolute pleasure. So I'm sat here in our this is a live environment, so goodness knows what's going to happen in the background. It could be anything. This is our 100,000 square foot office based in Wrexham. We have about, on a normal day, we might have about 800 people here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So I've been in the business for about 16 years, started off in sales, and I only joined for 6 months while I found myself, I needed a proper job for a little bit, and I'm still here, and I absolutely love leading this business. I've been CEO for about 5 years now, just coming up to 5 years. And what a 5 years it's been. I think we all thought that we had all these plans in place, all our disaster recovery plans were, let's not say watertight, but you know, that we thought that we might have thought anything that happened. And here we are finding ourselves leading great businesses through a really turbulent time. What do? We answer telephone calls. Like Martin said, it's all about outsourcing, answering telephone calls, live chats, and providing really great customer service experiences for lots and lots of different brands. We have about 23,000 clients, and they range from both over here, UK clients, in sectors like property, so lots and lots of estate agents, legal, very small micro businesses, SMEs, healthcare, and all different kinds of businesses in between. And they are all, if you like, what they got in common, they're looking to do things differently. They are early adopters in their sectors, both here and in the US. So part of the story that I'll tell you now is that we've got a US location with about 200 people in Atlanta as well. So big company in a growing market. You know, outsourcing now I don't think is the dirty word that it would have been maybe 15 or so years ago. And I think that it's been adopted by so many more businesses as a smarter way of working, with the ability to really get on with your knitting, do what you do best, and let other people look after those, you know, those additional things that you actually need to do. So what's really important about answering telephone calls and representing people on live chat is the people that we employ, or part of our teams that actually go and do that. And I think that's what COVID's really brought to life here, is that how do you move from an environment where you have a totally office-based model? So take Wrexham here, we've never done home working. A couple of sales guys might have taken a laptop every now and again and worked from home. But we had no sales, we had no remote working model. If you'd have asked me what my biggest challenge was in January 2020, I'd have said office space, that we are growing so fast, about 20% year on year. And that one day soon, even though we've got 100,000 square foot, lovely fancy building with a pub and everything in a gym, that actually one of my key challenges would have been running out of space. And so when you think back, and I really wish I'd done a diary now, I think that's one of my big regrets, that I didn't write my thoughts down as they happened, because hindsight's wonderful, isn't it? Hindsight, you know that you've still survived, we're still here, clearly. but to actually note down how I felt at the time, I think that would have been quite some kind of reading to go back to. So like every business, we had, what, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks to create a home working model that worked, that people were happy with, that the tech was okay and let's say acceptable to start with. And we were all in that same boat, weren't we? And that we managed to empty the building. So we had notice, what, middle of March, and we managed to empty the building 2.5, 3 weeks. And when you look back now and just think how that felt, that was just extraordinary. Culture is such a big part of our business, and how people interact and the facilities that we have around us to make sure that people are actually really happy and that they can do a great job. That's really, really important to us. So all those things were coming into play. How do we ensure that we can still deliver excellent gold standard, gold service to our customers across some really, really key sectors that needed to survive and thrive throughout this pandemic, whilst keeping our people happy and whilst being innovative as well. So I'm going to walk you through that story. Just a couple more things about us. We have been in the Sunday Times Best 100 Companies to Work For many times now over the past decade, consistently in the top 20. We've been in the top 5 a couple of times. And I'm really, really proud of that. I'm proud that as we've grown and scaled from the business that I joined with 20, 30 people in it, and you can become a business with 1,100 people, international, and that you can actually still remain and still get those accolades. That's a really proud moment for me. We are the leading outsourcing business in the world in terms of your telephone calls, outsourced switchboards, live chats as well. And so again, as you grow, you need to make sure that you maintain that reputation too. So we've got all this history and all these things that made us us. And my job was very simple. It was, how do we, during a pandemic, during moving to home, make all that work and go and do a good job, really. So let's look at the people first. What was really important to us is that people could communicate, that they still felt connected, and they still felt part of a team. We've never worked in silos. We've always worked on feedback. To answer hundreds of phone calls a day actually can be a really tough job. And if you can imagine doing that for lots of different businesses, we needed to make sure that people's morale was kept high and that we could do all these things to try and replicate that feeling of the office and feeling that you had that support around you. One piece of tech that we've used for quite a while, which was absolutely critical really for us, was Workplace from Facebook. And I will always go and bang the drum for Workplace. That has been incredible for us to make sure that we can still communicate, keep people's morale high, because if we can tell people what's going on and they can keep a smile on their face, that's how we've delivered great customer service. So that energy that goes in to making people feel connected actually comes out, doesn't it, at the other end, in terms of great customer experiences for your people. I used Workplace every week. I did a weekly waffle, waffling away anything that came to mind really, about how the business is performing, what my struggles might have been, what am I worried about, have we got new clients. One thing I did was we invested in a big marketing campaign, national ads right in the middle of, I think it was June, we pressed the button on that when nobody else was really advertising. So, you know, I unpacked the ads live on Workplace so everybody could kind of get that bit of excitement by osmosis, just that would have happened here. We try and replicate that digitally. So that culture piece was really, really important with keeping people on board. We sent out brownies to people, you know, sending them to home. We have wow cards for people that do a great job in the office. And we just wanted to make sure that we continued everything that we possibly could. Another thing that we do, Christmas is a big thing for us here. Clearly we had no party. So we had a cluck and collect in the car park where we were doing our usual hams or turkeys or nut roasts. Everyone had to pimp their car with Christmas decorations and lights as they came in the car park. And all the management team and some of the support team were dressed as turkeys, giving the cluck and collect turkey truck. And that, I think, just means that as leaders, we have to be creative and think, what are the things that we would normally deliver And in the scenario that we face right now, how are we going to replicate that, but in a very, very different way? I'll go back and talk about where we are right now, and because we're not in normal, are we? I don't think any business is in a normal scenario now either, and we've still got a lot to do. We saw amazing growth during the pandemic, particularly in the shutdowns. If you think people were embracing outsourcing, they wanted to go and work in different ways. It was a big moment, just like the downturn was really 10 years ago for us, is that you have business leaders stepping back and thinking, okay, this is a moment of change. I have a blank sheet of paper. How do I want my business to operate in this new world? And how can I maybe embrace services that I might have been too risk averse to do before. So actually we saw a lot of growth coming through during lockdowns and during the pandemics, so much so that we hired about 250 people. So how do you hire 250 people, train them in a building that's mostly shut, with people that are mostly working at home, where culture happens by osmosis? We did make it out the other end, you'd be pleased to know, and that you can see, but there is some really, really big challenges there. And I think we're still, and I will share some dirty laundry in a second, but we are still mopping up some of those learnings and challenges as we've gone along, really. We've seen a strong recovery now in call volumes and chat volumes too. We did have a period, I'm sure everybody did, April, May time 2020, and when the wheels are coming off and you don't quite know how long the cash is going to last, and and trying to keep both your own morale and your teams up high so that you can still keep delivering a great service is always going to be a challenge. So we saw a dip in business, but then it's been really good, strong growth ever since, really. And I think the environment's changed. People are looking to do things differently, and you can certainly see that coming through in lots of different businesses like ours, that this is a bit of the future, isn't it? And see where we go. Innovation was something that we really, really had to embrace. You take this big step back. If we think we wear our clients' shoes, you can't go far wrong, can you? Go wear somebody else's shoes, see the world through how they see it, and walk your way through their day. And we really tried to do that. A big example there was, we had estate agents. We have a lot of estate agent clients, and they were really thinking the market was going to be opening up again middle of May, but how are they going to do COVID safe viewings, and how do they make sure that they can go and collect all the data that they need to make sure that they were compliant? So we were doing things like coming up with the COVID bots, which our estate agent clients were using to make sure that they had all that compliance in place to continue their business, really, so they could carry on trading. Another thing that we did, we would normally have you probably see the canteen behind. We'd normally, obviously, it's a bit of a buffet, and that had to change. So we had a lunch bot that we made through Workplace, so that everybody was very, very much in a COVID safe environment, but using technology to be to stay ahead of the game, really. We have a digital switchboard product, which was all about automation, automating phone calls rather than having the actual receptionist, so voice recognition. And that, again, was a really good thing to be able to offer to people. We were giving people, a good chunk of time free on that as well, to make sure that we felt that we were supporting clients whose call volumes might be higher than they thought, and of course, new sectors as well. So we had to be innovative. We had to maintain our culture. We had to keep smiles on people's faces. As a management team, we had to be honest and open and authentic. I think authenticity perhaps is a bit of an overused word right now, but those weekly waffles with your hair in a bobble where you're really tearing strips out thinking, what we're going to do next. I think authenticity was probably one of the words of the pandemic from a leadership perspective. And it was about making sure that you were one version of yourself, and that you were sharing the bad news and the good news, and that actually people had an awful lot of trust in you. I'm going to show you a video. This was a video that we put together it was at the end of 2020. which I wouldn't normally want to show a video 9 months after the fact, but I think it really just brings to life a lot of the culture, a lot of the things that we did at Moneypenny to keep people smiling, to keep people on track, and to yeah, just show what kind of things that we did to be creative. Are you okay, Nia? Have we got the video?
Wrapped up, so consumed by all this hurt. If you ask me, don't know where to start. Anger, love, confusion, roads that go nowhere. I know there's somewhere better, 'cause you always take me there. Came to you with a broken faith, gave me more than a hand to hold. Call before I hit the ground. Tell me I'm safe, you've got me now. Would you take the wheel if I lose control? If I'm lying here, will you take me home? Could you take care of a broken soul? Or will you hold me now? Or will you take me home? 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 Or will you take me home?
It gives me goosebumps every time I watch that, because it just brings back that feeling of how everybody really pulled together. And I think we see that across so many different businesses. I reached out to different CEOs at different businesses, CEOs and chairs every week during the pandemic, people I'd never known before. They might just be my contact on LinkedIn. And I think one of the real key things that you felt from all of them was that everybody had teams that understood that they all felt that they were all in the same boat, and that we were all pulling in the same direction, and that everyone would just all do their bit, maybe a little bit more. And we need to retain how that feels, I think. And then watching that video back, you just realize how everybody in the business at Moneypenny and everywhere else just really pulled together to do the right thing and found different alternate ways of doing the right thing as well. I said that I would share some dirty laundry. I do believe that you can learn more as a leader, or more as anybody, can't you, from mistakes that people have made, things that they would do differently next time, rather than just the success stories all the time. If we can take a shortcut to be more successful, I would say that's one thing. And also that if you can sit and listen to somebody and learn and take away one thing that you might do differently next time, then it's always been worthwhile. So what would we have done differently now? I think being clearer about what the return to the office would look like. I think that's something that definitely should have had more thought for us. It's not quite so simple from a tech perspective as picking your laptop up and going home, or picking your laptop up and going back to the office. And so hybrid working for us is very much it's a work in progress. We have to do it. If nothing else, it solved my problem about office space, doesn't it, from January 2020. And we do have quite a few people still working at home. we've got about 60% in the office, 40% at home now, for different reasons why they're in the office. They might be new starters recently, or they might be people who, for tech reasons or personal reasons, actually don't want to work at home. But I think a hindsight would be to have a clearer idea about what our hybrid working model would actually need to look like, to give people the clarity. Because to me, that all feeds into two things: recruitment and retention. We are in a world now where, let's face it, and let's all be honest, we are seeing increased staff churn as a result of people making personal life decisions. We're getting people who they might have been here for 10 years, but they've decided to go and be a nurse, or they're going into the care sector, or they're going to go off into the police. These are big career moments that I think people have just had that chance to step back and think, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? So I think as leaders of businesses, we have to make ourselves even more appealing as to why people want to work for us. When people are, there are plenty of vacancies around, and we do have to stand out as an employer brand, to make sure that we would be that person of choice that people want to work for in the local area. And interestingly, we have exactly the same problem in the States as well. We are very used to, as a business, having an extremely good recruitment pipeline of CVs or resumes if you're in Atlanta. That is, it's still coming through, but it is slower than it was. So, for example, we might have had 4,000 CVs in a year, not generated through any form of recruitment spend. It's just do the right thing for your people and the right thing will happen. And that right thing for me is more people want to join our business, meaning that we can actually scale up. So yeah, we do need to make sure that we've got a really robust hybrid model in place. Otherwise, it will affect our recruitment pipelines, and it will affect our staff churn. So I think we could have been clearer there. Another bit of dirty laundry, I suppose, although I don't quite know what I would have done differently about it, is that back in February 2020, we already had an office in Charleston with about 40 people there. And we signed the deal on an acquisition of an amazing business called Voice Nation, based out in Atlanta. Signed the deal, got on the plane on the way home, fully expecting to be back there in the next couple of weeks. And lo and behold, we couldn't. And many of us have still not been over there. This acquisition was done 18 months ago now, and the team from Atlanta still have not been to see us in Wrexham to see how it's done and how it's delivered. And that for me has been a real lesson in creating relationships through Teams, through Zoom, and all kinds of virtual relationships, and how that can actually be achieved without getting on a plane. But the real lesson is that no matter what you do, you cannot replicate some of that stuff. You cannot let people have a feeling of a successful business and how it feels to be in the building, how it feels to be a member of the team, actually, without getting people over. What would I have done differently? I'm not quite sure. We're about to go in there. I think the only plan for me at the moment that I can possibly deliver on in terms of getting to the States is actually to be able to have I'm going to send the leadership team to the Caribbean, because I've decided, we talk about creativity. I've decided the only way of doing it is to get the Wrexham-based team over to Bahamas or something. We don't need to quarantine, and get the Atlanta-based team over to the Bahamas as well, and maybe have a 3-day off-site. We have to be able to just sit and discuss these issues as a team. We have to be able to say, how are we going to grow our business? What aren't we doing that we should be? We've got new hires that we've never even met. So that for me is finding a pretty good compromise solution about not being able to get to the States. One size fits all as well I have on my list here. It's not that we lived in a one size fits all world anyway, but right now we have to recognize that all our clients are different, with lots of different needs and wants and problems that they actually need to fix. But our people as well, they're all in completely different situations. We've got people that want to work at home full time. We've got people that want to work at home on a hybrid working model. We've got people with kids that are off, and there's COVID and there's school shut. And I think the world's got infinitely more complicated. So as a leader, I think we have to have that balance, don't we, of being able to make really good decisions that suit the business, but also to be flexible in there as well, to make sure that we're actually looking after our clients, looking after our people, sorry, and then layer on the fact that our clients have a really strong opinion about how and where they want their calls handled. We've got to make sure that it's secure. We've got to make sure that our people are working on their own in a really good environment. So we've got these three sets of people really to keep happy in a much more flexible, unique, bespoke way than we ever had before. And I think it's okay to say, actually, that's quite hard. And I think we've all had to pivot really, and do things that we would normally have done, not standing on our heads, but we'd have done it as part of a process. And actually, that's a lot different than it would have been. Growth opportunities. One of the learnings at the moment is that we could have recruited faster in Wrexham, and the problems I think we've had in the States as well in terms of hiring new people and minimising the staff churn as they make their different career choices, is that we could be growing faster right now. So there are areas that we need to work on within the businesses to make sure that we've got this continual pipeline of new starters coming in. We've now got to a point where we've got 24 and then 24, so about 75 people starting within the businesses by the end of October, mid-November, and that's extraordinary to be able to fuel that growth really. So before we move on to a few of the Q&As, I just want to talk you through a couple of the areas that really stuck in my mind that we had to make sure that we adhered to, some of the key phrases that really worked for us to make sure that we delivered great service to our customers and to remember that who the customer was, back to wearing their shoes again. One of the key phrases in my head was be brave and bold. I do believe that leaders who had a very micromanaging style, who always had to tell their people every day what to do, or they didn't empower their people to make decisions, I think they're the guys that have had a really, really tough time over the past 18 months as leaders, because you can't sit in your spare room or your office at home and direct the orchestra the same, can you? You have to give people the clarity, the tools, the resources, the objectives, and let them go make their own decisions and treat their own area or departments as their own small mini business. And so brave and bold was the key phrase for me, that we were able to empower our people who were used to working not in silos. They were used to working with their teams but making their own decisions. They didn't have to run everything by kind of leadership. If it felt right, go and do it and apologize afterwards for making any mistakes and don't do it again. So be brave and bold was a phrase that really, really resonated with people, and that worked really well. My other phrase that was constantly on my mind was you can either hide, survive, or thrive. As a business, we've never hid. We've never hid from challenges. We've never hid from growth opportunities because they're all a bit scary. We have embraced everything. I didn't want to go into survival mode either. So survival mode would have meant that I would never have invested, I think it was about 100 grand in that marketing campaign when nobody else was spending any money on marketing. You know, we'd have just made sure that we kept the lights on, that and we ticked over. And it was for me the moment that you could actually say the market's changed, people are changing, what people want out of work is changing, what people want out of a supplier is changing as well. And we always operated in thrive mode. We cut costs where we could, there's no doubt about that. And some of that was a bit painful as well. But we were in thrive mode. We were saying, how do we come out of this, the other side, a better, stronger, more knowledgeable and confident business? So we really did. So hide, survive, or thrive. And we really wanted to be in that thrive zone. And finally, what was an incredible moment, I think, was that it was okay not to know. It was okay not to have the answers. None of us did. The reaching out to the CEOs, the other CEOs, whereas we might have been full of a bit of bluster in the past that, oh yes, everything's fine in my business, it's growing like Billy-O and everybody's happy. It was okay to say, well, that's just not the case. Here are my issues. Here's my dirty laundry. What do you think and how can you help? And that was a really empowering moment, I think, for leaders of businesses that had that openness and that ability to go and share what wasn't working. And I really hope that we retain that as leaders. That becomes a new leadership standard, that it's okay to be human. It's okay to be one version of yourself. You don't have to pretend to anybody around you that you've got all the answers, because actually the answers are there mostly sometimes within your teams or they're externally, but it's okay to go and ask. So I do think that we're operating in a new world. I think the expectations of customer service has changed as well. I think we've got people who, there's a lot of frustrated members of the public out there who want answers from the companies that they're dealing with. They want speed of answer and they want to know things and they want to know it now. Live chat, we have seen, has really flown over the past 18 months as people's habits change and they're actually much more willing to embrace a lot of the digital technology. Things like Teams has changed the world too, hasn't it? That actually we can communicate on Teams rather than being in the same room as people. And we as a business now are actually coming up with a solution so that businesses can actually use Moneypenny through the Teams platform as well, which means that we are moving ahead and staying abreast of the times too. So if anybody out there wants to come and experience this place for yourselves, want to come and have a look, and we'll tell you more stories and you can meet more of the team here, then you are very, very welcome to. And it will also be an absolute pleasure to take any questions that you've got, and I will answer them as fully and honestly as I can.
Thank you, Joanna. Wonderful. And my technology was lagging a bit there, but I am with you now. I'll go to the questions. I've got one or two of my own, but we'll come to that in a minute. And you did say if anyone wants to come and see you, well, Lisa Anderson wants to come and work for you.
Okay.
But seriously also asks, and perhaps I'll couple this with another question. What can you and the business do better now as a result of your learning from the pandemic? I think you've touched on some things, but I wonder if there's anything you'd like to develop. And I'll pair that with Haddis Wittenberg, who's asked if living with the virus is the new normal, what fundamental changes will there be to the way you operate?
What can we do better as a team? I'd say everything. If we think for one moment that whatever process we've got or thought or planning is going to be the best that it can be right now, then we are not going to grow, we're not going to scale. I'm a big fan of marginal gains, the 1%, the tiny little things that you can always tweak to every single process to make you better. The thing that I would say that we have to retain coming out of the pandemic is communication. People want to know the truth. They want to feel that they want to be engaged. They want to know what's going on. They want to be educated. And I think that that's one of the most important things that we can do is regular, honest, open communication with our people. That has to be the case. And then, you know, COVID is with us for the long term, isn't it? We've still got a one-way system here. You know, our pub's not open yet. That makes me want to cry. We'd normally be in there on a Thursday and Friday night in the dog and bone, but we can't do that either at the moment. But hybrid working, I think, will just change the way we all operate. We're all able to make better work-life balance decisions, aren't we? Yeah, just work in a completely different way. So I think that changes the way that our people want to work, but changes the way that businesses need to work as well.
Thank you. And I'll link that to a question from Katie Mason. Again, you've touched on some of these things. And this is about remote working again. What do you think might be lost if we don't go back to our offices? And what do you think just can't be done remotely, both in a temporary time of crisis or as a more permanent way of working from home? And we've heard a lot about innovation is what we're missing on, but you've got,
Yeah.
I'm sure, much more to say.
Yeah, so yes, there is the innovation piece, but I think innovation comes from culture, doesn't it? And comes from engagement. So for me, it's that moment of feeling close to somebody that, you know, you've got the imagine you're a team of 5 and you've got phone calls coming in all day. There is an element that at some point you want to turn to your teammate and go, busy today, isn't it? You know, or I've just had so-and-so on the phone, and you want to share this experience that you've just had. That is so much more difficult to do. It's not impossible digitally. We can send text messages, WhatsApp, we can use Workplace, but that one-to-one human connection is so hard if you haven't got that every single day. Some people don't need it, but for us and the kind of people that we have bright, sparkly, shiny people who love to chat. Let's face it, that's their job. So to not have that ability, I think, 5 days a week really has a bearing on people and on their mental health as well. So I do think that you lose that ability to converse and to feel part of something bigger. Management style, I think, has to be very different when you've got people who are remote workers as opposed to people that are in the office, because I think that it could be misconstrued what you're trying to say. You could be very easily, you could be not accused is the wrong word, but people could think that you're being overly picky because you can't see the operation, or that you can't see how they're working today and what their challenges may be. So I think you need to be really switched on as a manager if you're going to manage people who are working remotely. And then there's the innovation piece. Now, I think depending on personality type, actually, some people tend to be more innovative if they're in peace and quiet and they've got that moment of being able to get on with it. But nothing replaces that face-to-face collaboration that you would get as a team when you are working through problems, especially new products. I think new products put the right kind of people with the right kind of brains in the room, and amazing things happen. I haven't yet seen that replicated again from my perspective.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll link that to a question about a specific aspect of as it were, working remotely, and that you mentioned having had new starts who you still haven't seen face to face. So Eleanor Forsyth is asking, how did you ensure company culture was effectively communicated to and adopted by home-based new starters in lockdown?
We haven't. So when we've had new starters for the receptionist and PA roles and live chat roles, they've all been office-based. Because we felt that the training program worked so much better when it was delivered on a face-to-face basis. And whilst you are able to pivot lots of areas of your business, changing the training process and taking a risk with that was just one step too far for us. And we didn't take that chance. What we did was kept the building more or less empty of everybody else, so that anybody who was a new starter could actually come in here and feel very, very safe and secure. It's the support team roles more than anything, I think. You know, for example, data has been a real growth area for this business over the past 18 months, 2 years, in terms of getting in some really great people, great teams. I've not met half of them, but I've talked to them on Teams. They're on our weekly trading meeting, because that's the kind of job actually that they don't need training in terms of how to do their role. But what they do need is integrating into the business over a period of time. That's the piece that's had to wait, I think, and that's the bit I'm really looking forward to, is getting some of those people into the office to experience life as it should be here.
Yeah. I'll squeeze in a question of my own here. I've done a bit of work recently with accountancy and law firms adopting AI and other technology, and COVID made them accelerate that process, as they will have to suddenly work from home, and you know, it was here of accountants suddenly having to use the bit of software that they were sort of trained on and sort of knew about, but never really quite got round to using. So that certainly things happen much quicker. You mentioned scaling up the business. Will that experience sort of increase technology in the mix as you grow, or will you scale up, as it were, through adding more people? as you would have previously?
Both, I'd say. So I think if you use technology in the right way, it can make you more efficient, can't it, and make you more productive. What we have to be careful is that that doesn't remove any of our human elements. So let me give you an example. If you were going to create a call center feel to a telephone answering service, you could have it scripted, you could make it feel like it's, you know, a whole series of questions and answers, and it doesn't feel like a natural conversation. We don't want to go down that road. We're all about having natural conversations with our clients' callers to make sure that we're actually replicating what would happen on a front desk or a switchboard service. However, there's lots of voice recognition software, there's lots of AI, there's postcode recognitions, etc., that you can actually bring into your service so that the technology is almost invisible, and it just enhances the receptionist or the PA's ability to go and preempt what those questions may be, and to go and give them a, you know, it could be that it cuts call durations, for example, and that's how it actually delivers some efficiencies. There is no doubt about it that voice recognition will replace humans to a degree. We really believe that there's always going to be edge cases, and that's the piece that will be outsourced. So there are going to be edge cases that only humans can deal with. And because it becomes more of a non-core activity then actually people are going to be much more willing to go and outsource that. So our focus is on creating products and services that people can use that would negate the need for humans, but also how do we make those smart humans even smarter so those edge cases are dealt with in an even better way.
And edge cases, you mean the things that are marginal for your clients to do and they're happy to or willing to give to you, as it were? Yeah. So
things that can't be automated. If you came into our office today, Martin, and tomorrow you said, I think I left my umbrella in the corner of the orange meeting room, you know, that voice recognition system is not going to get that one and go and find it for you and stick it in the post, are they? So it's about what are those edge cases, new clients, new inquiries that you just don't want to put through automated systems.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just peering now at some recently added questions. I'll fit this one in definitely, from Madeline Burrows. And I think this might be a way to round up a few things, actually. What would be your advice to your pre-pandemic self after this experience? What is the one thing leaders and businesses should focus on ahead of the next as yet unknown crisis?
Apart from buy some hair dye ready and make sure I keep a diary, because I would have done those, and bought the scissors. What would I have done? I'd have put more effort into creating a home working model that didn't have to be up and ready in 2.5 weeks. But I think what I would also have said, looking at that self that delivered that, was look what's possible when everybody focuses on one problem. If you have one problem and it goes across every single department in the business, and you use all your best brains to say, I want to fix that problem in 2 weeks, look what's achieved. And I think we could say that from all businesses. We all did something that we never thought was possible. And it's because as a team, we all concentrated on that one issue. And that to me still blows my mind that we were able to do that. We sketched it out for 6 months. We did and ahh'd about the budget for 6 months. You know, we wouldn't have been as reactive, I suppose, and have really high expectations. Failure was not an option. So I think I'd have liked to have said to myself, look what we can do. If you all work as a team, then actually that is a really, really good example for me.
Thank you very much, Joanna. I think time is against us as ever, so we'll draw it to a close. There are 1 or 2 questions we didn't get around to, but we did quite well in covering them. Thank you ever so much. We've heard earlier in the week about some of the sort of mega causes of COVID and some of the general insights into work patterns of working from home and the future of work. But I think what we've had today is a real insight into the nitty-gritty and the practicalities of running a business under those circumstances, and some, I think, fascinating insights for everyone. But I think some common themes as well, you know, the importance of leadership and devolving responsibility to people at the coalface to
Trust
and
people.
get on with it and work things out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very much again,
Thank
Joanna, for a fantastic presentation.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.